Okay, calling the meeting to order.
We're on the record.
We're on the record. This is the Environmental Protection Commission regular meeting, Wednesday, February 6, 2019. First piece of new business, EPC 3, 2019. Town of Darien Parks and Rec Commission, Wheat Beach Park and Short Lane. Proposing wetland filling and compensatory wetland creation and enhancement. The site is shown on Assessor's Map number 56 as lots number 3 and 10. Would you like to come up?
We have a microphone there. If you just hold the microphone up right there on the plane, and that's it. Thank you very much.
Good evening, I'm Dan Diggs of Weston Sampson, representing the Town of Darien Parks and Rec Department,
Could you spell your last name for me, please?
EIGGS.
Thank you.
We're working with the town on Short Lane parcel, which was acquired a number of years ago. Just to the west of this is the existing Wheat Beach property that formerly was a series of residential properties that the houses have since been removed over time. There was a boathouse one time that years back, a storm had removed that structure as well. So now it's been sitting for many years as overgrown residential lots, more or less, with typical grass, some former residential vegetation, shrubbery, and also a wetland complex in the backside. Many may not know, but that was actually a wastewater lagoon at one point when the pump station, which is just due north of this parcel, was a wastewater treatment facility. It is now a pump station, which pumps it elsewhere within town. So it's not used as a wastewater lagoon.
Actually, to correct that, it bus at the Stanford.
Stanford, correct.
Just two of the Stanford treatment center, yeah.
Correct. So it is a number of wetlands that do not function as they were possibly created one time, way back when. The project we're looking at is to expand the beach more or less. The existing parking area as you drive in, this is currently a stone gravel surface, and the lawn area that we're dealing with is just due to the east of that. Converting this into a lawn open space for the Parks Department to use for events, festivities, and just general recreation use. As a result, we're looking to fill in 3 of the wetland areas that are more or less tucked into this landscape area to make out to having longer lawn areas and a series of pathways. As a result, looking to enhance and to mitigate any impacts on existing wetland that is adjacent to the pump station. That would be including eradicating invasive species in this area, as well as enhancing with additional wetland plantings around the buffer to block any use of the pump station, and also to provide a natural resource within the park area that's unique to Wheat Beach. That would be useful for any visitors and patrons in the park area.
Okay, the question here, because of this to the commission is, given what they want to do, do you believe this deserves a public hearing? Would you like to go to public hearing on this, which would be next month, or should we hear this and just go directly to hear us and not do it public hearing? I'd like to get a sense of the information. Go ahead.
I think public hearing would be the way to go, because it's, I mean, that area down there gets a lot of use by town residents. I think it definitely is something that should be, I mean, there's been other things over the years for other parts of Wheat Beach, and it's always been somewhat controversial as to what is going to or is not going to go in there, so I would think a public hearing would be the way to go.
Yeah, I don't think maybe that's what it's made. It's public property. It's public hearing.
Okay, then we need a vote to go to public hearing?
You don't need a vote.
Good, then.
Oh, well, no, you don't need a vote, no, you just have to make a finding.
Well, okay, finding it in the public interest that as it's public property along the shore, adjacent to a very popular park. I think it's wise that we see you next. What's the next meeting? March 6th. Okay, that's good. All right. Thank you.
Have it now.
Okay, the next item is EPC 4, 2019. Darien Athletic Foundation, 80 High School Lane, proposing construction of a gravel running track in an upland review area. The site is shown on Assessor's Map number 9 as lots number 80 and 81.
Good evening, for the record, Joseph Canis, I'm a principal engineer with Ty and Bond, retained by the Darien Athletic Foundation to provide site engineering services for the proposed cross-country path. This application, you'll see there's two separate applications. There's one for the high school property, and the other is what's commonly known as the Diller property, which is on the southwest corner of the high school. Obviously separate property. So the intent here is to create a cross-country path. First of all, during practices to get the high school runners off the streets for the most part. The other is to be able to host one home competition a year. All right, so I'll walk you through the entire loop and then discuss what the wetland impacts are. So the intent is to start on the Stadium East Field, which is that field in the northeast corner of the school. Run across the turf, run across the varsity baseball turf field, and then there would be a crushed stone path. You'll see this like beige color here. And basically that's just to provide a stabilized surface for the runners to be able to run on. And then there'll be very minimal grading. The good thing about having a cross-country track, it does have its ups and downs, and
It's supposed to.
exactly right. So it comes out. This is the ring road. That's south of the oval fields. So you run between the guardrail and the fence. Crosses Norotan Avenue.
Where's Norotan Avenue on there?
Right here,
Okay.
right there, yeah. So it crosses Norotan, continues on the high school property, then it enters the Diller property. It goes around the basically perimeter, and then comes back out of Nutmeg Lane onto the sidewalk. Crosses Nutmeg Lane, runs right along the tree line, along the west property boundary, then jogs through the woods here to the west of this practice field. And then comes behind the tennis courts. In that area, there's going to have to be some tree trimming. There are some pine trees here that are fairly low. No tree removals, just selective tree trimming. Then it comes down the slope. There's that big bowl in the back. It comes down there, then comes up, and then it runs along the inside of the trees, and then back to the start. Now, for
How long is that? How long
that
is the track?
is 6,070 feet for a complete loop.
Okay, so they have to do 2 loops
Right, yeah.
for a.
Yeah,
for a
2 to
track.
3, yeah,
Yeah.
depending on the type of race.
Thank you, Ken.
And so the other piece of this is, and that's what we call the competition. During practices, the player, since these fields will typically be in use, right, by other teams, they will run on the outside of the fence, across the top of the berm, again, right along the fence, and then to join back to the competition room. So on the high school property, there is some wetland impact, and that wetland impact, and I'll show you on the next sheet, is actually down in this area here, where it connects to the Diller property. And that impact on the high school property is 875 square feet. And again, that's just placing the crushed stone, digging out some of the ground and just placing that crushed stone there to provide a stabilized surface. The upland disturbance is 14,141 square feet within the 50-foot upland review area. And that's on the high school property. And again, the reason for that is most of it is because we're running along the fence line here, and that is within within 50 feet of the wetlands associated with Stony Brook, and also a little bit in this area here. But again, we're not encroaching into the wetlands in those areas. We're just near them. So, any questions on the high school property itself before I flip over to the Diller side?
Well, we haven't opened up that yet, have we?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're sorry, no,
Oh, okay,
we're,
so
because they're 2 different,
Yeah.
I mean, it's all town of Darien, but it's 2 different
Okay. Yeah.
departments that are responsible for it, so we'll deal with.
Just the high school right now.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. My first question is, does the Board of Ed, approve, and, because obviously they're responsible for maintaining this property and any improvement
Correct.
They would have to approve.
That's correct, right. On the high school property itself, the Board of Ed will be responsible for maintenance. In terms of
Have they agreed to it?
They have agreed to it, right.
Okay.
And what they have also agreed to is to allow us to, the DAF to apply to the EPC for work on their property, and you should have those letters in your file.
It was a requirement that the Board of Ed give permission to the DA.
Right.
Absolutely, yeah, okay, so
So
they're sure that's on the record.
Right, yeah, so they.
I think they had a meeting about it.
Yes, yeah, there were 2 meetings.
On this bottom right corner where, that's a pretty wet area coming in. How close are you gonna be to the baseball field there? Because the woods there
Right.
are often.
Right, yeah. What it is, there's like a little, a relatively flat plateau that's about 4 to 5 feet wide. And that's all you need in that area because it's just practice, it's not gonna be competition. And then it goes down. So they'll be pretty much right on top of that plateau.
Where it's the existing plateau.
Right, yeah, yeah, exactly. And then what happens in this area, right, we have the pond here, so everybody's on the top of that berm. And then the other berm they run across is right over here. You already have that depression when you first drive into high school, you make that right.
And what will prevent erosion when you're running across the berm?
Well, when you're running across the berm's fairly wide actually for maintenance purposes, about 8 feet wide, and our path is about 5 feet wide, and we have a crushed stone surface. So that'll absorb the impact, and that's meant to, because you run on bare ground grass, it will, you'll start to see it get eroded over time. The crushed stone, prevents that from happening.
Does what effect does the crushed stone have on the permeability of where the path is, the path would be?
Okay, that's a good question. The crushed stone, if you can imagine, has air voids in it. So if it rains, that water settles into the voids and it soaks into the ground below. So it's really no impact on the impervious cover. So it'll have no impact on the drainage.
How about if that water freezes?
Well, if the water freezes, it'll run off onto the adjacent grass. It's only 5 feet wide, so it's a fairly, it's a de minimis impact when you compare it to a 1.2 square mile watershed. And from a safety standpoint, obviously, if there's frozen water on it, they're not going to run on it.
How deep is the stone?
The stone is 4 inches.
Will that have to be dug out or just laid on top?
It'll have to be dug out, because what happens is if you put it up on top, there's a chance that it could act as a dam, a small dam, but you don't want it down water. It's maintain natural drainage patterns.
So is the proposal to follow these specific areas of the track, cut 4 inches into the ground and lay stone into that?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Now, in some areas over here, there might be a tree root, so we might not dig out the tree, obviously we wouldn't dig out the tree root. That's part of the challenge of the course, is to be able to have, some tree roots, and give a little bit of a home field advantage, so to speak.
And so how many places on the track, is it 100% of the track where we're laying gravel?
It is, it's not 100%. This area here, coming up here, we decided to leave that grass. For the simple reason it's just so steep, you wouldn't be able to keep gravel on that. Sorry, not gravel, crushed stone.
So as an example, 50%, 2/3?
I would say you're probably looking at maybe a quarter, because you have to discount this because it's already artificial turf.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would say it's a quarter. I can get that number for you.
No, this is a follow-up to my next question.
Sure.
So is there any, in your professional opinion, if the track, the trail were to be compacted,
Mhm.
is there any impact to the adjacent wetlands?
If the track were to be compacted, I would say there would be no impact, because the water would still continue to flow across that gravel, and it would be infiltrated, just outside. It's not, it's a fairly small ribbon. It's like, basically putting in a small sidewalk or something like that.
Is it special crushed stone?
No, it's, it's angular crushed stone, so it, it can
So
bond together.
3/4 crushed stone.
Right, exactly. And it might be a little larger, it might be an inch or inch and a quarter, yeah. Yeah, 3/4 might be a little bit too small.
So that's really just gonna get compacted, correct? And then
After a while, yeah,
And
yeah,
then
after people are running out.
Gower will get into it, and it'll
Well-
get, well, wouldn't it, I mean, as an example,
Mhm.
if you were to create a substrate for any engineering activity, a parking lot, a
Mhm.
sidewalk, a walkway, and you were to roll vehicles over
Right.
that surface or continuously walk on that
Mhm.
surface, it's going to be very compacted.
Right, over time.
It'll become concrete, asphalt.
Right,
It'll be-
over time.
Right, so if you have a bunch of, just a question.
Yeah, no,
You have a bunch of high schoolers competing and practicing
Mhm.
on that track, it will get heavily compacted.
yeah, over time.
So is the maintenance that you would not want that to be compacted?
Well, for me, it's what's gonna happen over time, you're gonna have pieces that get loose, people that get stuck in cleats and things like that. So over time, you have to top dress it.
So that'll be the maintenance.
That'll be the maintenance, right? And as part of the maintenance too, will also be some selective brush trimming or tree trimming as needed.
So if you're starting out with 4 inches and it becomes compacted,
Mhm.
water and silt and earth material fill that void of 4 inches and it becomes solid, are you scooping that 4 inches out a year later and putting fresh stone in it? And that is the maintenance?
I wouldn't say it would be a year later. I mean, eventually, at some point, they would need to do that. And I would say probably be about somewhere 3 to 5, depending on how often they use it. And the meets are only once a year. Right, so that's when we receive its heaviest use. So they're not gonna be running, meets week after week, it's only one a year.
Would it be a practice route?
Yeah, it would also be a practice route, so, but you have fewer runners at that time. Yeah.
Fall or spring or both?
For scheduling, I have to confirm that
Fall.
with the DAS, I believe it's fall,
Fall.
right, yeah.
I ran cross country for Darien, yes, fall, yes, fall, but that doesn't mean you don't get people, off hours, for example,
Right.
off, non-school hours, you'll have, the odd adult
Right,
wandering, running there, like you get them on the DHS track, people will sort of go on the track and,
right.
do whatever they
I used to
do.
go to the high school track all the time. It's
Yeah. So, but it's not that,
Right.
and there aren't that many runners on the cross country team, so. What? Is it now?
Yeah. Yeah, and the track team will probably use it too, but it's, again, it's not thousands of people.
Okay, any other questions? Okay.
Well, I have one question. I guess it's on page 12, 5-12. Page. Section 5 summary. Third line down says no direct or indirect impact to the wetlands functions or values. Then first main paragraph down below, proposal does result in an impact to wetlands functions. Could you explain that?
Let's see. Okay, so I'm looking at the first,
Third bullet point down, no direct or indirect impact.
oh, that's the wetlands functions and values. All right, so what our environmental scientist was saying here was just because we are creating putting crushed stone on this piece of, on this segment of wetlands here, it doesn't negatively impact the functions and values of that particular wetland.
I read are they contradicting themselves, or am I missing something, or?
And then, so what we're saying is, that third bullet point, so we're not impacting the wetlands functions and values, but in that first paragraph after the bulleted list, we do say the proposal does result in an impact to wetlands and upland review area. And by impact, what we mean is, we are impacting it because we are placing the crushed stone there. So we're impacting it in that sense, but we're not impacting it to the extent that we're negatively impacting how that wetland functions or the values of that wetland. Does that make that clear?
Yes.
Okay, good.
back to a maintenance question. So if the track is used for practice, and particularly in the areas where you're in the review area, does the Parks and Rec Department or the Board of Ed, or excuse me, Board of Education, now maintain that regularly where
My
they're
understanding
picking
from
up?
our meetings is that Parks and Rec has volunteered to take care of the Diller property. That's their property.
Okay.
And that the school will be responsible for school property.
So does the field staff, will the field staff regularly be looking for, after a competition, for example, and maybe this should be a condition, is that there's cleanup of power bar wrappers and gel packets and all that stuff? How many people are at a meet like this? How many
I think
competitors?
they said typically 80 to 100,
Yeah.
got 3 teams.
People- My experience is people will congregate near the finish line and start line, and they may spread out along a portion of the route, but you won't have spectators standing in the woods watching on the Diller property. They'll wait for the kids to come back out of the woods and see who's ahead.
Spent
No,
more time
but
since
the
I-
issue is, the issue is cleanup.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I agree with that, because I would.
Right, no, that makes
You know,
sense.
if the runners carry, I don't think they carry
Don't
food.
pass.
Maybe, yeah, I don't think.
Well, it's
they
not a
carry-
triathlon, but, you know,
No.
I would do triathlons, right? And
Right.
I'd have my gel or whatever. and We
Cross-country
throw it to the
don't-
street
don't
and
carry
the
food
group
and
picks it
water.
up. So we just don't want gel packs in the weather.
Right.
Well, the Parks Department, you know, they'll go in the Diller property and clean up,
Right.
keep an eye on that. On the school property, I'm assuming they pick up trash.
Right, yeah.
I don't, you know, I can't imagine they don't have somebody.
Right, and that
Periodically.
exactly, right, yeah, it's part of it.
I mean, they would do it after football games.
Right.
They might, I guess they would do it after any event, I
Right,
suppose.
yeah, and the competition's only once a year, so that's not a big ask, I don't, in my opinion.
Joe, on this is the back of that handout.
Yeah.
What are these? This is right here.
Okay, those lines represent our different soil types.
Oh,
Yeah, great, the,
I thought
the,
maybe there are other paths across.
no, those are just soil type boundaries from this NRCS soil survey. That's all those are.
Anybody else? Okay, Rich, and we'll move on.
Right, and so this doesn't warrant a public hearing, this portion, not the,
That's something that
you're
you're
gonna
gonna
get after the Diller property.
That's something, there's enough impact to it. Okay, the next item is EPC 5, 2019, Darien Athletic Foundation and Darien Parks and Recreation Commission, Nutmeg Lane, parentheses, Diller property, proposing construction of a gravel running path and plank boardwalk in a wetland and upland review area and construction of parking spaces in an upland review area. The site is shown on Assessor's Map number 9 as lot number 128A.
Okay, again, for the record, Joseph Canis, principal engineer at Ty and Bond, retained by the Darien Athletic Foundation to design the cross-country path on the high school property, which also extends on the Diller property. What you see here in front of you is a Diller property. It's a 5-acre parcel off Nutmeg Lane. The high school property is to the east, you have private residences to the west and the south, and Nutmeg Lane is to the north. This is part, like I said, this is part of the cross-country path. This is the connection from the high school. And you can see here in a close-up, we have the property surveyed, and we did jog the path around trees to minimize the impacts of the trees. So what we did was try to get it as much as we could outside the drip line. Obviously, there's some large trees in there where we couldn't do that, but we did the best we could to try to minimize our impact to trees. Again, we don't anticipate any tree cutting, just maybe some tree trimming here and there as needed. The other feature of this is because this property is administered by the Parks and Recreation Department, and this is in their master plan, and because of the restrictions for the general population of the town to enter high school property during school hours, one of the things that we did add to this is a leg on the eastern side of the property so that a resident can walk down onto Nutmeg Lane or park and be able to walk a complete loop around the property. Because otherwise, they'd have to walk all the way down to the high school property and then have to turn around. So this provides a little circuit that they can walk. Again, we are proposing crushed stone. That's that beige color. And then we did have a meeting with staff, and as a result of that meeting, we did change most of this leg, certainly the portion in the wetlands themselves, to a wood plank path. And you'll see the detail on the plan. So basically what it is, it's you got maybe a 4 to 6 foot sleeper, which is basically a wooden beam that sits on the ground, partially embedded into the ground. And then you have a 2 foot wide plank on top of it. So so you walk on top of the plank. The wood beam kind of distributes the load, so you don't tip to one side. And so it's the value of that is it gets the walking surface pretty much for the most part up above the wetland. Not a whole lot, 6 to 8 inches, but that way you're not impacting the wetland soils as opposed to putting a crushed stone path on there. And the reason why we couldn't do it for this portion of the wetlands here, this shaded area is wetlands, is that you can't run on these. You get moss growing on them in a shaded environment, and they tend to be slippery. So on this, on the Tiller property, our wetland impact is 3,573 square feet, and that's a result of placing the crushed stone path and the wood plank path. And our upland disturbance area is 3,940 square feet. And your upland review area is this dashed line here, so it's pretty much the entire northern portion of the property, and it runs across here, and it's here. So pretty much, I would say 3/4 of the properties in your upland review area or wetlands. Also because this is Parks and Rec administered property, and you'd be able to encourage its use by people across town as opposed to just local residents in this particular neighborhood. It's also included in the master plan is the addition of 6 parking spaces, parallel spaces along Nutmeg. Initially, we had looked at trying to get these spaces off of Nutmeg, but once we got the wetland flagging back, we realized that there was really no way to do it without having a much larger impact on the wetlands. So this was this is the best location for that parking. So basically, we have to cut into the curb line to provide those 6 spaces. And let's see.
So you wouldn't actually be on the street, or it would be off the street?
No, it would be on the street. They're parallel.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Any other questions?
How long is the loop that they walk?
Okay, the loop would be 1/3 of a mile. So
Okay.
it's not huge, but it's basically the least intensive park use of the property, for passive recreation.
Is the wood walkway, is it kind of similar to what you find over, say, Woodland Park?
Yes.
Do they have?
Audubon or any of the
Right.
trust properties.
Yeah, and another thing that we are adding, just as an educational component, is we do have, in advance of each of the wetland crossings, we do have a small sign that advises users to stay on the path and not to stray into the wetlands. And as part of our mitigation, we are cleaning up the invasives in this area, and I'll be providing a wetland plant list to replace those invasives that are removed.
There's a lot of barberry.
There is a lot.
On the whole property, are you looking, or?
We were looking at this area initially, but
Well, see what's
Right.
reasonable. I
Yeah.
mean, it's gonna come back. It might be more effective.
To do-
Just
okay.
See if you can, see what it would take to get
okay,
rid
I'll
of
talk to our wetland
Yeah.
scientist about that. That's a little outside.
It's
I realize.
intensive, it's intensive work, but, it's all over it.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
So, Rich, I'd like to get a sense of the commission whether it's worthwhile for this to go to public hearing, given this, given this property's been, there've been lots of public meetings on this in the past. In the 80s, there was we put tennis courts on there, there was a soccer field, among other things, and all of which were turned down. And it did evoke a lot of public controversy in the papers and everything else at that point in time. Okay, this is obviously, much less impact on the wetlands here. But personally, I'm of the opinion that we should probably go to public hearing here, just to make sure that give the neighbors here a chance, because in the past they have been pretty vocal. So, is that okay with you?
Absolutely.
Guys? Okay, so we'll see you next March 6th.
March 6th, okay.
March 6th to do this, and we'll see if the neighbors are as active as they were 30 years ago.
Well, the wetland impact, there may be neighbor input. It's possible that PZ may have more input in terms of the use rate when it comes to PZ. But, let's see what turns out.
Yeah, sure, but there's a,
Mr. Chairman, can I ask one question? For the portion of the boardwalk, the path,
Yeah.
what would be the impact to the wetlands using all this pressure treated material?
Well, it's a different type of pressure treated, commonly you think of pressure treated, it's arsenic based.
What's ACQ?
It's ACQ, right? So it's a little different, it's recommended by different trail associations. So that's why we selected that particular type of lumber. Right, yeah, because you want something that's obviously going to be resistant to rot, right, because it's in ground contact, but at the same time, obviously, you don't want anything that's arsenic based.
How long will you expect it to last?
Typically on those, you're probably looking about 8 years or so. That's it, yeah.
We used to use railroad ties
Right.
40 years ago.
Yeah.
That's what we did.
Yeah.
Some of those are still there.
Right, but yeah, the railroad ties have the creosote, and that's why, yeah.
So, creosote, we never talked about that. That's what we use.
No, what I was,
Yeah.
the reason why I was asking is, what would be the environmental, it's still a chemical embedded in a piece of wood, it's embedded into the ground adjacent to, and in the wetlands, and how that would impact the,
Right.
how that would impact
Yeah.
wildlife, or,
Yeah, and I could, take a look at that more closely for when the hearing comes, but, and the reason why we did select that was because it's recommended by the U.S. Forest Service and other, right?
right, I don't think you need to, I'm satisfied.
Oh, okay, all right, thank you.
okay, anybody else? Okay, well then, one last question.
What do you think the impact of this whole thing would be on the wildlife that either live there or
Yeah,
Positive,
come in and
it would be a
out?
positive impact. It would be eventually when the wetland mitigation is done. It has potential to
right,
have a positive impact.
right, yeah, because as Rich said, there is a lot of barberry up in here. And by removing the barberry, that will certainly improve the quality.
Well, plus general cleanup.
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
there's a lot of miscellaneous
Mhm.
garbage there that's
Right.
accumulated over
Leaves and dumped.
decades,
Mhm.
okay?
Right.
And so, for
Right.
the last 50 or 60 years there.
And-
So just somebody conscientiously going and cleaning up there would take a lot of
Yeah, and the other piece of it too is, yes, you're opening it up to more public use, but the benefit of that is that you're going to potentially have people be able to see what's going on in there, report it more easily than, right now it's kind of tucked in out of the way where there's no public engagement.
Okay. So we'll see you March 6th.
See you March 6th. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next item of business is EPC 7, 2019, Joshua Smith, 112 Raymond Street, proposing installation of a drainage system for a replacement house in an upland review area. The site is shown on assessor's map number 33, it's lot number 16.
I'll see what you said. I can just brief you and we'll hold it over. First,
I think we should hold it over, give him a chance to make
I
this.
just wanted to let you know that I've asked Doug DeVesta to look into whether or not he thinks it's appropriate to request a waiver of stormwater detention and just provide water quality because it's so far down in the watershed.
Yeah, it is down.
And that way he can make that system a lot smaller, move it all the way up, maybe even out of the wetland review area.
That's a good idea.
But obviously he would have to, look at that and then Darren would have to agree. So I haven't had a chance to, in the last, only been a few days since I saw it.
Okay.
I would, look into that and potentially even move everything out of the review area, maybe not.
Sure,
But,
well, then it becomes moot. That's right. So let's keep this open for next, let's push it to next month. And then we'll,
It's not a public hearing, it's just
no, he has to show and present. But in the meantime, there's a side that he may be able to have water treatment, but release it right into the river, into the 5 Mile River, and in which
Well, no,
case.
he's not on that side of the road. It would just be downhill towards the wetlands.
Oh,
There's a pretty big wetland on the land trust next door.
Oh, okay. Great. Next item of business is agent approvals. EPC 1, 2019, Local Property Services, LLC, 685 Austin Post Road, proposing drainage improvements in an upland review area. The site is shown on assessor's map number 16 as lot number 63-1. Did all members have a chance to take a look at that, review it? Any questions for Rich? Michael, nothing? Okay. Okay. The next item of business is CPC 2, 2019, Mark DeBernardinis, 34 Fitch Avenue, proposing storm water detention system installation in an upland review area. The site is shown on assessor's map number 41 as lot number 75. Did all the members have a chance to review this? Any questions for Rich?
Is there already a system in there?
No, he's adding, there's no system, it's an older home. He's renovating and adding on. And this is, the addition is outside of the review area, but the only place he found suitable for the stormwater detention was in the yard within that 50-foot area.
Familiar with the property, I didn't realize it was in the wetlands area.
There's a little stream. It's channelized. I wouldn't say it's man-made, but it's been channeled. It was channelized, and it's very straight right along the property line.
Okay. Next one is EPC 6, 2019, James and Noel Krabs, 27 Deepwood, proposing a house addition within an upland review area. The site is shown on assessor's map number 26 and lot number 48. Anybody have any questions for Rich? No? Okay. Done. Moving on to other business. We have the minutes of January 9th, 2019. And Richard comments. Anybody have anything, any comments or questions? Make additions?
Page 3, about the fourth sentence down. Urban said he assumed, not assumed.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Am I correct?
Mr. Zakowski, yes.
I got the answer on that.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Okay, given those changes, can I have a motion to approve the minutes of January 9th? Thank you, Gunnar. Thank you, Susan.
I wasn't there, so.
No, okay, all in favor? Okay, 4 and 0 and 1 abstention. Moving on to the minutes of January 15th, 2019. This was the minutes of a special meeting for 73 Holmes Avenue. Were there any changes? Okay, Mr. Zakowski, yes, okay. Anybody else have anything? Okay, may I have a motion to approve the draft of these minutes? Thank you, Gunnar. Michael, can you second this? Thanks. Okay, all in favor? Okay, 302. Okay, is there, I don't think there's any other business. So can I have a motion to adjourn?
Do we want to discuss, do we need to vote on
We're
the
gonna
school
get
property?
the school property, he's gonna write a draft,
I'll write
the
it.
approval.
Oh, that's right.
And then next meeting, you'll get it in your packet, and then we're gonna, anybody else? Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Kelly, thank you, Susan, all in favor? Thank you. Good night, Channel 7.